These are pre-algebra notes for section 4.5, relative frequency tables. So a relative frequency is the ratio. When you hear ratio, we want you to think of a fraction. It's the ratio of a data value to the total of a row, a column, or the entire data set. And we're going to show it as a percent. So we're going to use our calculators and calculate percentages of individual rows and columns, or maybe even individual boxes. So this first table says Asha asked 82 classmates whether they play sports on the weekend. The results are shown in the two-way frequency table below. Use Asha's two-way frequency table to complete the two-way frequency table. So we can see that there were 82 students total. So we're going to start. I'm going to pull up my calculator. You're going to need a calculator for this. And I can see that there were 21 boys that said yes out of 82. So 21 out of 82. And we're going to multiply that by 100. And we're going to say that's 25.6%. We're going to do the same thing for the girls. 26 students out of the total of 82 times 100 is 31.7%. Now we're going to do the boys that said no. There were 18 boys out of 82 who said no. And we're going to take that amount and multiply it by 100 to get our percent. So 21.95, the 5 turns the 9 into a 10, so that's 22%. And for the girls, I've got 17 out of 82. Multiply that by 100% to have 20.7%. Now I can add those columns and rows. So when I add the row of people that said yes, I'm adding 25.6 plus 31.7 to have 57.3%. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the people that said no. 22 plus 20.7 is 42.7. And we want those on the bottom, we want the totals to make 100%. So now we'll add the percentages from the boy row. 25.6 plus 22 is 47.6. And we'll add the girls, 31.7 plus 20.7, so 52.4. And if we add those totals in our total column, 47.6 is how many boys were in the survey, 52.4 represents the girls in the survey, we get 100%. So we know we've filled this in correctly. Now this says, out of all the people polled, what percent said no to playing sports on the weekends? So the total that said no on the weekends was 42.7%. How is a two-way frequency table different from a two-way frequency table? Oh, I missed a word in there. To a relative frequency is that relative frequency tables use percentages. Okay, moving on to the next one. Use the given data to make a two-way relative frequency table by columns. Okay, so we have a total of 404. So we're going to, because we're doing this by columns, we're going to see how many of the 7th graders, what percent of 7th graders liked ebooks. That's 85 out of 122, or 85 out of the 207 7th graders. So that's 41.6%. So I'm going to put these numbers in here. 85 out of 207, which gives me a total of 41.1%. Now, what percent of the 7th graders picked audiobooks? So 122 divided by 207, and we're going to multiply that amount by 100%. So 122 out of 207 is 58.9%. And when we add those, we're going to get 100%. Because we're finding it by columns. Now we're going to do the same thing for the 8th graders. There were 197 8th graders. So we're going to take that 125 and divide it by 197. And multiply that amount by 100. So that's 63.5%. Now, we can assume what that other percent is because we know that column is going to add to 100, but we want to make sure we're calculating it correctly. 72 out of the column total of 197, we're going to multiply that by 100 to make 36.5%. So 72 out of 197 is 36.5%. And we know when we total those, we should get 100%. Now, out of the totals, we're going to take, there's 104 total people, so we're going to take 210 and divide it by the 404. So 210 divided by 404 is just a little over 50%. So 51.9, the 8 rounds to 9 to a 10, so that's 52%. So we can expect this next calculation to be 48%. But this is 194 divided by 404. And when we multiply that by 100, we're getting 48%. Okay, now, how does the percent of students who chose ebooks compare to the amount of the percent of students who chose audiobooks? So they were really close, but of the whole entire thing, 52% chose ebooks. %48 chose audiobooks. The next question says, is there evidence that 7th graders have a tendency to choose audiobooks? Explain your reasoning. So we're going to look at the 7th graders, and then we're going to look at audiobooks. So in the column of 7th graders, I can see that 41% of 7th graders chose ebooks and 58.9%. So we can say that. We can say yes. Of the 7th graders, 58.9% chose audiobooks. And 41.1% chose ebooks. Okay. Now we're going to just do the same thing, but we're going to do it by rows. So remember that rows go left and right. I should have said above that columns go up and down. Okay, so we're going to look at this data from the people at, looks like maybe a basketball game. So using the table, what percent of students polled attended the last home game? So we're going to look at how many people are in these rows. So of the students, there were 42 students who did attend out of 68 students who did not. So we're going to take our 42 and divide it by the row total, 68. And then we're going to multiply that by 100. So that's 61.8%. Now we got to do the same thing for the students who didn't attend. So 42 did attend, that means 26 did not. So 26 out of 68. So 26 divided by 68, we're going to take that amount and multiply it by 100 to make a percent. So that's 38.2%. And when you add those, you'll have 42 plus 26, 68 out of 68, that's 100%. And the 61.8 plus 38.2 adds to 100%. Now, the faculty, there were 27 faculty members. 15 of them went to the game. So 15 out of 27. We're going to take that amount and multiply it by 100. So that's 55.6%. And then let's see, we had 12 divided by 27 and multiply that by 100. So that's 44.4%. Oh, let's clean that up. 44.4. And when we add those totals, 55.6 plus 44.4, that's 100%. Now, we want to see that there was 95 people in this grouping of all these students and faculty members. So how many total went? So 57 out of the 95 people attended. So 57 out of my total 95. We're going to multiply that by 100, and that's 60%. I know the next one's going to be 40 because that number is going to add to make 100%, but we can prove it with math. We can show that 38 people out of the rows total of 95, so 38 out of 95 is 40%. And that makes 100%. So when we're finding frequency by rows, you want the rows to total 100%. If you're doing it by columns, you want the columns to total 100%. So let's answer these last two questions. Using the table, what percent of students attended the last home game? So we just need to look at the students. And yes, is 61.8%. Using the table, who was the bigger group of people that did not attend? So go to the no, and it looks like the faculty had less people go. Oh, no. Yeah, the faculty had a higher percentage of people not attend. My last piece of advice is to make sure you know where you're rounding. And I would always round to as you saw, I would always round to the nearest tenth rather than whole numbers, because you want these to come out pretty exact.